it's Jack from Cultaholic.com, back again with another news video. Check out our first news video earlier on today for all of those stories. I saw a comment on the last news video saying my favourite bit is when Jack forgets who's done the first news video earlier on, which is true, but it was Sam this time, I think, so yeah, check yourself before you wreck yourself. Without any further ado, let's get into all of those news headlines. First of all, an NXT superstar seems to have been quietly called up to the main roster. How sneaky. Next up, a top indie faction are apparently signing with WWE. And last of all, an AEW star says that John Cena refused to lose the WWE title to him. So, first of all, Fightful Select are reporting that Santana Garrett was apparently called up to the main roster this past summer. So not even a really recent secret call-up from NXT to WWE, or the main roster of WWE, but one that, like quite a few months ago. Now, Santana Garrett has only wrestled on NXT TV a small handful of times. She's not really been in any major storylines. She's certainly not been in contention for the NXT Women's Championship or anything like that. She did have some outings on Raw and Main Event earlier on this year when they were trying to kind of scramble a roster together during the early stages of the lockdown, but since then she hasn't really been used. Now, this report from Fightful notes that there were a number of pitches for Santana Garrett, including for her to apparently be a part of a tag team. No mention of who that tag team would have been with, but none of these pitches have so far come to fruition, and she still hasn't appeared on Raw or SmackDown. But Garrett's not the only one this has happened to. She joins the likes of Chelsea Green and Vanessa Bourne. I totally forgot about Vanessa Bourne as well. Names from NXT who have been called up to the main roster, but have then not been used at all. Very interesting stuff there. I wonder if it's because maybe at the moment the NXT women's division is just so good and so crowded that maybe they want to try and move some people to the main roster. But the fact this happened a few months ago and still nothing's really been seen is very strange, especially with WWE in a bit of a creative corner at the minute, because obviously they can only use so many people. There's all the limitations going on at the moment with just the state of the world. Why wouldn't they take a chance on somebody new, do something fresh maybe? I guess you could argue they might be saving her to make her debut when there's fans in attendance, but if they've done stuff like a big WWE title change without fans in attendance, then surely they'd be fine debuting an NXT superstar on the main roster without fans in attendance. So I really don't know the reason. Next up, a top indie / Impact Wrestling faction, or stable maybe you want to call them, a trio of Impact lads are apparently set to sign with WWE. Wrestling Inc. are reporting that the Rascals are about to make the jump. Now, the Rascals are the trio of Zachary Wentz, Trey Miguel and Desmond Xavier. They've been quite a highlight on Impact over the past few years, often delivering high-flying, fast-paced action, whether in the tag team division or sometimes in the X division. They've also wrestled all over the place. I saw Desmond Xavier at a UK indie show a couple of years ago as well. Very, very good stuff. Great dancer as well in the after party. Really good dancer, actually. And on the whole, they're a bunch of wacky, likeable lads. I imagine they'd be baby faces, surely, but you never know what WWE is going to do or how they're going to repackage somebody or how they're going to creatively envision them as they make their way in the new company. Now, Wrestling Inc.'s report does state that this deal has not yet been signed, but apparently it is believed to be a formality and they are very much expected to be on their way to WWE. With that being said, they need to tie up a loose end or two in Impact Wrestling. And so the Rascals' final match with Impact is set to air next week, and we'll see Trey Miguel team with the promotion's world champion Rich Swann against Desmond Xavier and Zachary Wentz in a tag team match. A big kind of feel-good, all the guys together, I suppose, kind of thing. So best of luck to all three of the Rascals as they make their way to WWE, or apparently it's all but confirmed. And hopefully they do really well. So exciting times for those three, and best of luck to them. Next up, let's take a little look at a couple of backstage details regarding the recent AEW tag team title change. So full gear spoilers, although you probably know them by now, but just be aware that I'm about to say what happened. So obviously at Full Gear, the Young Bucks beat FTR to become the tag team champions, and after that they spoke to Sports Illustrated in the aftermath of their big title win, gave a bit of an insight into the creative process behind the timing of their victory. The Bucks said, if we'd won them right away, there wouldn't have been a struggle for our characters, meaning right at the beginning of AEW's creation, or the tag belt's creation, I suppose, which makes a lot of sense, you know? I understand why they did that, and also, if they'd won them straight away, that would have, I guess, attracted a lot of criticism, like, you know, the Bucks are marks for themselves, they want to just win the tag belts, they're going to bury everyone else. So I think it was probably wise, actually, to hold off for a little while. But apparently the Bucks actually wanted to hold back even longer than they did. They said, we wanted to hold back for another year, but winning now was a Tony call, a Tony Khan call, his decision apparently. But they're glad it happened, they say, at the pay-per-view. They say it felt special, and winning it from FTR in this rivalry in a match that we never thought would happen took it over the top. So it looks like it's going to be a fondly remembered moment for the Young Bucks. Sad times for FTR. They, of course, did not appear on Dynamite this week, so I have to wonder what is next for them in terms of storylines and what are they going to do. And finally, Jake Hager recently appeared on his stablemate, Chris Jericho's Talk is Jericho podcast. And Hager gave a bit of an insight into his relationship with John Cena and an incident that happened between them when Cena was WWE champion and Hager, I think it was when he was the Money in the Bank briefcase holder. In fact, yes it is. Hager says, when he was known as Jack Swagger, of course, I should point out, Hager says, I had a little inclination, but I had no idea what was going to happen, implying here that John Cena refused to drop the belt to him. He said, the night before, I teased it on Raw, I hit Cena with the briefcase, I snuck up on him when he had one of his brilliant promo segments. Later on, came to find out, he refused to do the job for me for the championship. We won't talk about that. And then he mockingly says, the most unselfish top man in the business. Ooh. Now, when this news kind of first started getting circulated online, I felt bad for Hager, because a lot of people were tweeting saying, well, yeah, I mean, Cena did the right thing. Why on earth would he drop it to you? I was like, oh, that's a shame. Remember back then, Jack Swagger had a lot of promise and a lot of potential. Won the World Heavyweight Championship, obviously, and then it kind of went downhill a bit for him then. I think he's really found a good thing right now as the heavy of the inner circle. Largely doesn't really speak. He's often very silent, very menacing, and it just kind of suits him down to a T. So, you know, I don't know how different would his career have been if Cena had dropped that WWE title to him a decade ago. Maybe very different. Maybe things would have kind of gone along the same path. We'll never know, but, you know, it's an interesting story for him to tell, I suppose, on the Talk is Jericho podcast. Hager also talked about his respect for Jericho because apparently in the build-up to the night he won the Money in the Bank briefcase, Jericho turned to him and said, you better not F this up. And Hager said, you were dead serious and you were very sincere about it. And then he goes on to explain that meant he respected Jericho. He said he reminded him of his toughest and best wrestling coaches in his amateur wrestling days, his collegiate days. And that, you know, someone once said to him, if you're not yelling, then you don't care. And it sounds like Hager's someone who responds well to a bit of tough love, whereas I'm very much the opposite when it comes to motivation. And if someone shouts at me, then I'm less likely to do what they want. I'm too busy weeping. So that's it for today's news video. Thank you very much, everybody, for watching this special late night edition of the news. Apologies that it's so late in the day, but we did record a jam-packed edition of the podcast, which is why this is going out a little bit later on. Thanks once again for watching. Let me know what you thought of any of the stories down below in that comment section, and look out for all of our excellent content coming up over the next few days and next week and forever and ever. Go on, Cultaholic. That's right. Stay safe out there, of course. Stay positive, and I'll see you very soon.